Good afternoon. I'm going to wait just another minute or so till I have a confirmed quorum. We're about there. Okay, we're in good shape. So we'll begin. Welcome to the fifth meeting of the 40th session of the Faculty Senate of Texas A&M University. If you need a reminder of the Zoom features used in our Senate meetings, the Zoom tip sheet can be found on our website at the top of the current agenda page. At this time, please make sure your microphone is muted. Senator Andrew Klein will be monitoring the raise hands function. He will verbally identify you, then you can unmute your mic and ask your question. In fairness to others, please limit yourself to one question at a time. Senator Klein will also be monitoring the chat to convey messages as necessary, so please send any chat questions directly to him. We're using the registration function of Zoom to track attendance. Most visitors today have been asked to view the meeting via our live stream, but our guests and administrators who may be asked to answer questions are joining via Zoom. Visitors wishing to address the Senate may make this request by sending a chat message to Senator Klein or by using the raise hands function. Finally, if a senator wishes to offer a motion during today's meeting, please raise your hand during the appropriate time and ask to be recognized. Our first order of business today is the swearing in of new senators. I will read the charge and then call on you to respond. Please unmute your microphones now. I charge you to serve well and faithfully, to discharge your duties diligently, and to uphold the Constitution of the Faculty Senate and the academic integrity of Texas A&M University. Do you accept this obligation?
I do.
Thank you. Then I declare you officially installed as faculty senators of Texas A&M University, and I welcome you to share in the governance of this institution. Please mute your microphones now. I'd like to welcome today our guest speaker, Interim Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs and Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Alan Sams. Dr. Sams returned to A&M a year ago to help colleges, schools, and the central administration adjust to myriad changes brought about by the reorganization approved by President Banks for this year. This summer, he was named by President Banks as interim provost. The floor is yours, Dr. Sams.
Thank you, Dale, and hello, everyone, and particularly congratulations to the new senators. It's an auspicious event that just happened for me to follow. So I do congratulate you and thank you for your service to the university and to your colleagues and to the students and staff and stakeholders that depend on so much of what we do. So I just thought it would be, well, first I had intended and Speaker Rice had invited me to join you last month for this, but I was out of town at an AAU provost meeting, so I'm glad to get here today. But the idea, the intent is really to kind of just introduce myself, but also talk a little bit about this, my vision for the provost role. Yeah, I introduced myself in the vice president for operational innovation role last year when I um, returned to the university, and so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that, but some salient points are about 30 years of faculty membership here at Texas A&M, department head, executive associate dean in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. I left for a while and was dean of ag, forestry, and life sciences at Clemson University, and then dean of agricultural sciences and director of agricultural experimentation and extension at Oregon State University most recently. So the point about all that is a long time service at A&M and a variety of roles, a lot of social professional network here at A&M, but also experience at two very different other schools that have very different university and I will add social structure and climate and culture around them that I bring to this role now. And when the president asked me to take on this interim provost role, I said like I did when I came back as in operational innovation. Any way I can help. This institution has been a great part of my life, both personal and professional, and so I'm glad to be here. This is a unique time in the university's evolution. I think now that we're on the backside of the president's State of the University address, I think that's even more apparent that we're in a tremendous time of I will say growth and refocus and expansion in many ways, although expansion of enrollment necessarily isn't one of the big drivers like it has been at certain times in the past. But we're at a great inflection point, I guess is maybe a good word to use, in the university's evolution. And that's no different for the provost office. The provost office, working group one was making recommendations about what the provost office would be and look like. And with the creation of faculty affairs as a separate vice president level role, it really did, I've had lots of people ask me about that, because it really did change the complexion of the provost office. And it certainly changed our focus. And working group one was really a recognition of that. But before I get into too much of that, I mean, the change by taking faculty affairs and elevating it to its own vice president role really is a recognition that faculty have, and being one myself, faculty have many other aspects to their professional life and their professional advancement and success beyond their academic role. And I think that bringing that out into its own office really created an opportunity to elevate and highlight and probably more importantly support and celebrate the many other aspects of faculty members' professional lives. And it brought them out from being embedded just in that academic context. And it's not too unlike many other things that are involved in providing or carrying out that academic mission that we have. There's many things involved in doing that don't happen to be in the provost office and quite frankly never have been. And so this really doesn't, it is in keeping with other kinds of approaches to providing that academic experience for students. That is really the core mission of the university. The president mentioned it being the core mission of the university as well. But so the separation out of faculty affairs really was something that's been a very pivotal part of this. But what that did was what's left with the provost office, and a better way to say it than what's left with the provost office, but what we are now charged with in the path forward and in the MGT report is really to focus on academic excellence and how we support students as well as faculty, as well as staff, as well as the other support components of the university. How do we bring all that to bear in that focus on student excellence and student success? And that's really what the president has charged me with. And so we're at a point now, like I said, this inflection point with the provost office. I'm fully aware that I'm the third interim in a row to hold this position. But the way I look at it is, Tim Scott did such a great job leading through this last year of the path forward and all the adjustments and the working groups and trying to manage this transition. And now I have been handed off a provost office that now has a singular mission, right? Yes, we are still, I will say in a loving way, doing cleanup on a lot of the working group stuff and working through the bugs and the snags and things like that. But our singular focus right now is academic excellence and student success. And so the provost office has never had that singular focus before. And so what does that mean for us? Are we focused in the right way and doing the right things? Are we structured in the appropriate way to do that? Are there things that we maybe are doing that we don't need to do, or are not doing that we need to do or do differently? And so we're spending some time this fall examining that, doing some kind of visioning and strategizing and collecting input and doing some assessment of some of the offices and programs to kind of decide what that is. Are we structured in the best way? You know, working group one, their final report says that the interim provost will have a few months to assess all this and make some of these final kinds of decisions. The org chart that they put together is just buckets of responsibilities. It's not actually how it all works together. So that's what we're going to be doing, and that's what my focus is on. Part of that for me personally is getting out and visiting all the offices that are components of the provost office and visiting colleges and schools and things like that. I've been with the president on our town hall visits and we'll be on the rest of them as well. But so that's kind of what my approach is to this initially is we need to make some decisions about what the provost office structure and function is, and how we serve, how we work with faculty affairs, how we work with student affairs, how we work with all the other aspects of the university that are so critical to that core academic mission that we've got. I intend that there will be lots of points of input into that, and we will certainly engage the faculty senate and others in how we do that. I think there's one piece that I think I want to bring up, and something that I've had several questions about, is an early piece of this new visioning that we're talking about. It has to do with the movement of KAMU and the movement of the Academic Innovation Center and the movement of the Center for Teaching Excellence. These are all part of a large kind of complex domino space puzzle that we're putting together or trying to resolve. And so I wanted to kind of give you some thinking about that initially, just as a start, because it might come up in some questions or something. But it really comes from the fact that we have the KMU building over by the Hagler building that really needs to be enlarged just for its operations, but also as we bring online the journalism program, grow that, have more student involvement in the programs there in the KMU operations, it needs to have a bigger, better facility to more foster that. So that's piece one. We recognize that needs to happen. Piece two is that we've got the football complex, well, it's not just football, but the athletic complex that is being expanded at that end of the stadium. And so the footprint that's needed for that lot of different kind of variations of that. One of them involved, an ideal one involved that building and that complex extending into where the footprint of the KMU building is. I have to say that that athletic expansion is not causing the need for the move of the KAMU building. It's really a need to expand and improve the KAMU facilities. It just happens that these two things are right next to each other and obviously connected because of the footprint thing I was just talking about. Well, then began the search for where's the best place to put the KMU building. We looked at a number of different options, including new construction. And we began to talk about which buildings would be suited for that, which offices and space would be suited for that. And one of them happens to be the Academic Innovation Center and the Center for Teaching Excellence on the top floor of the classroom building there. It is space that has that is very well suited for the kinds of things that happen in academic innovation. In one of those visits and follow-up conversations, it's pretty clear that the pandemic has changed a lot of the way the Academic Innovation Office interacts with faculty and supports faculty. And part of that is that much of that now is done virtually, or it's changed the way the needs that faculty have for that. And so we began to talk about, is that a potential space for KAMU to move to? And where could we put AI and where could we put CTE to maintain their ability to interact and support faculty, but keep them, adequate space of the right type and that kind of thing for the kinds of work that they need to do. AI already had a floor in Nagel Hall that was being very underused, and in square footage and capabilities of the space and things like that. It seems to be an appropriate space. Blocker Hall on the second floor, there's a very large suite of offices that Deborah Fowler has gone over and looked at and thinks that actually will be an improvement. They're actually excited about this kind of a move because of the general location of the space. It's next to parking. It's near a lot of student and faculty activity. And so space on this campus, as you can imagine, I hope I've tried to lay out a number of different kinds of factors involved in this, really tend to be a puzzle that goes together. It's not necessarily any one thing that happens, but we try to, find solutions that are positives all the way around. And so that is the move. For AI to move and CTE to move would be moves that would happen this coming summer. They wouldn't happen during the academic year, and they wouldn't happen certainly during a semester. We want them to happen during the summer break time so that they don't affect faculty needs and faculty support. So that's part of that move is an assessment going on of AI and how they serve faculty and how they serve units and that's kind of where that is. I know that that's a transition that's of interest, so I wanted to make sure I included some of that in my remarks. So I'd be happy to take some questions, Speaker Rice, if there are any, or I will be around for the rest of the meeting as well.
Senator Hammond has her hand raised.
Yeah, hello. So this is actually more of a comment that I feel like we should just let the whole Faculty Senate know, which is that Dale Rice and the Faculty Senate have been working closely with NK and the Faculty Affairs Group to make sure that a new SAP has been written to make sure that the VP of Faculty Affairs has the same election processes or nomination processes and that deans do. So one of my biggest concerns for the changing of that position is VPs can be just appointed and they don't require any faculty input into that decision, whereas deans do require faculty input. And so that has been updated. I believe it's close to finalized or somewhere around that space. If yeah, Alan is shaking his head yes. So again, that helped reduce some of my fears about the changing of the position, and Alan did describe it well, of it trying to actually make it more important rather than us. Where I was very worried about the potential, even though everything was happening fine initially, you know, for future cases where it would just be an appointed position. So I just wanted to let people know that, and thank you, Dale Rice, for working so closely with them, pushing that forward.
Senator Alvarado has his hand up next.
Hi, thanks for the introduction. You made some points about relocating KAMU and CTE and all of that. Does the university have like a priority list of what is more important to do? I mean, my department has been in the same building for the last 102 years, and our footprint is not growing. We have more faculty members. We don't have office spaces for them. We don't have additional classroom space. I mean, but every time I ask, I cannot get a straight answer. I mean, sorry for putting you on the spot, but in my opinion, we have higher priorities.
Well, I guess a couple different ways to answer that question is we rely a lot on the deans that have space requests and space needs to come forward with needs that they might have. There is a capital plan for the university that has new buildings and major renovations on it, and it is largely driven by not totally by private funding, but that is a large factor in determining where things are in the list. And so those are two drivers, but there's not a list of what's more important than the other.
Senator Haig is next, I believe.
Thank you, Dr. Sams, for meeting with the Faculty Senate today. Earlier, you mentioned the growth and expansion of the university, and along those lines, the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences has been tasked with increasing enrollment within our college. And I don't know if other colleges have gotten the same charge or not, but in your opinion, how should this occur in a way that doesn't compromise our research mission so that we can also maintain the quality of our students? We see benefits to this growth and enrollment. And lastly, how will the university be partnering with our college to accomplish this goal? Thanks so much.
Hi, Steve. It's good to see you. I think one of the main mechanisms, I think, is a new program that's being rolled out this fall. The president mentioned it at her State of the University address. It's called the Opportunity Program, and it is really built around where do we have existing capacity in programs based on faculty numbers and student numbers and ratios of them. And the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences is one that has a number of those programs. The list of majors that are involved in that isn't really finalized yet. There's a couple of different versions of it, and so she's currently kind of considering those. The deans, I don't think the deans have even seen that list yet, but they'll see it soon. But the idea is, and I was careful early and kind of corrected myself a bit, that there isn't any particular initiative for growth of the student body at the university. There's a little bit of creep now and then that happens when the estimates our melt isn't quite as large as we project it's going to be. So we do increase a bit from time to time. So there's not really a major effort to grow, but what we are trying to recognize is that we've got additional capacity in certain areas. And so that's what we're trying to capitalize on. So in terms of it, we don't anticipate that it would have a major impact on infrastructure on research activities, things like that, because it's not requiring additional faculty lines and it's just taking up empty seats in existing classes.
Senator Taylor had his hand up next. Matthew, are you there? I guess we'll go on to Senator Hill Price.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
I'm here.
Go ahead, Matthew.
I apologize. I'm on my phone. Good afternoon, Provost Sams. This is Matt from College of Ag. I was curious if your office had received any early feedback, faculty, staff, students, as regards the recently completed fall break in terms of student response, students liking of the fall break, their sense of we appreciate it, we like it, we don't like it, put it somewhere else, etc. Essentially, has your office or any offices received any early feedback as to its execution and the campus's reception to it? Thank you.
No, I haven't. I haven't heard direct feedback on that. And I meet with the student government once a month, and that's on my list of things to ask them about that. So I haven't heard directly from students. I have heard from a few faculty about it. The ones that I heard directly face to face were comments that they appreciated it and liked it. I heard secondhand that there were some that questioned why we need to have it, or questioned when it was, which day it was and which week it was, and that kind of thing. And I think when I met with the officers team of the Senate, we had some conversation about the dates that were selected for it and when it was actually scheduled during the semester and that kind of thing. I can give you, a little bit of advance notice that there, in conversations about doing it next year. I think Joe Pettibon is looking at a couple of other options for when maybe we can do it, and so it's an active topic of conversation. So Matt, I don't have any definitive one way or the other. The faculty report was really a mixed bag. I think the ones that I saw face to face, maybe it's because they were talking to the provost, they thought it was a great thing and they really enjoyed it and appreciated it. But some of the secondhand comments that I had heard conveyed to me were that they didn't like it, mostly because it interfered with their teaching activities in their classrooms, not because they didn't want time off. There was a question about whether faculty that were on 9-month contracts were required to be in the office on those days, and indeed they're not, because by definition they're supposed to be work days. They're not only required to be on campus when there's classes in session, and on those 2 days are not. So
I think it's now back to Dr. Hill Price.
Good afternoon. Thank you. So I was on one of the working groups that I was on was working group 2 that made recommendations about advising. And so we saw the report that went forward, and when it came back signed by the president, it had 2 additions. And one of those additions I find incredibly concerning because it very much affects faculty and our engagement in the advising process. So we had a deep conversation about faculty and how they engage in advising. And we have faculty who advise as part of their service requirement and their opportunity to get additional funding in the summertime and provide a huge resource to our university. I feel like people don't really understand the advising process and how faculty really have to be an integral part of that, and how it's much more successful. Even in centralized advising, departments had, in colleges that were centralized, they still had faculty who were engaged and were supervising those advisors on the dotted line, because the faculty are who are ones who make decisions about change of curriculum, transfer students, curricular substitutions, course equivalencies, things like that. All the decisions. Otherwise, we would just have staff who are filling out forms at the behest of faculty, and that's not what we would like for our advisors. So the recommendation was that recognizing faculty's position that they would have a dotted line to the college, that they would have to the college centralized advising, and that they would have to go through training like everybody else, and that they could gain their access to their screens to do advising, verifying that they had gone through the training. The new note that came out said that all advisors, that they have to have a clear centralized advising structure. All advisors must have a solid line to the advising lead in the college with only a potential dotted line to the department head. So there's not even a recognition or requirement that the centralized advisors even have any connection to the departments and to the faculty and the students whom they serve. And we have now faculty who would not have and not appropriate to have a solid line to a staff member. So I know of at least one college that has now used this as an excuse to say that faculty are no longer permitted to advise. We can't afford to replace all of our faculty advisors with staff advisors. And frankly, we don't want to, because the faculty who are trained can do a really good job because they also happen to be subject matter experts. So I really fail to understand how we are undercutting our student success by eliminating effectively our faculty advisors. Thank you.
Yeah, first I'll say that this is in the early stages of being implemented. And the specific topic that you bring up in terms of how this affects faculty advisors in that role is something that I think that we're still working out what that means, because this is something that exists in a number of colleges and schools, and so each one of those instances is a little bit different in terms of what this footnote really means for that. So there's not a real clear answer for you quite yet, because the implementation that hasn't been worked out in those colleges and schools that still rely on the faculty advisors. So I don't have a real clear answer for you. I'm aware that of the value of the faculty in the advising role, but how we resolve what the points that you just brought up is something that we're still working on. Don't have a clear answer for you quite yet. Again, it's fairly recent that these were approved.
Senator Laporte has her hand up next.
Hi, Katrina Laporte, the College of Arts and Sciences. I have a comment and a question and a bit of information. You had said that the Provost Office now has a singular mission of student success. Well, I would advise that student success can't happen without faculty success. If the faculty are not happy or need a mental break or whatever, the student success can't happen without it. And the recent message that went out about the fall break only commented on student mental health and not faculty mental health. And my observation is that the faculty are at a pretty low point, feeling very, very burnt out at the moment. My second point was about the KAMU move, and I do think that the KAMU movement and the football complex expansion has nothing to do with the ILCB, which was primarily put in place to help the student teaching mission. There's a lot of history involved in the ILBC. I happen to be involved in the working with the architecture right from the very beginning. Then I was on an 18-month task force with other teaching-focused faculty to implement best teaching practices along with the AI and CTE and IMS and the ILBC. I know that's a lot of acronyms, but there was a long history of AI and CTE and IMS integration of faculty. You can't just put faculty in that building and get them teaching 600 in the round without some mechanism of support, and that support is right there. I also have a whole list of other reasons why the KAMU moving into a teaching-centric building and what message it sends to the students is a bad idea, but I just want to put this bug in your ear. I don't know if you've ever taught in the 600 in the round classroom. I personally haven't, but I've taught at a higher level than that. When the train goes by, that whole building shakes. And if you're doing videos and making movies in a journalism, you don't want no shaking buildings. So that's just my comments. And I was going to put together a whole list before this meeting, and you interjected with your feedback, but I am in strong disapproval. Moving the CTE and the AI and IMS, if IMS is included, out of the ILBC is just a horrible idea.
Yeah. So I'll take your second point first and then go back to the fact. Well, just the fact of mental health and an announcement that went out. Point very well taken. You're absolutely right. That word faculty should have been recognized in there as well. The point of the email was really it was in response to some student things, but point well taken. I agree. So the ILBC and the teaching coordination. So IMS is slated to stay there. And I just recently was made aware of the role of assisting faculty in using those classrooms in that building being done by the people upstairs, so to speak. And so Heather Wilkinson, I think, and I were talking about that just the other day. And so that's something that we'll need to make sure is still accommodated IMS or when this move kind of happens, to make sure that support is still there, because you're right. Those are unique environments in which to teach.
So Alan, if I may follow up, there has been a number of comments in the chat concerning this, some of which were echoed by Katrina. But in addition, it was pointed out that building's location is central not only to main campus, but also to West Campus. So moving offices into Blocker or the Nagel building moves them farther away from faculty who teach on West Campus. And I think the other thing, this is my personal statement here, is that you think you should look at kind of what you've done. There was a long process, as Katrina said, with faculty, staff, and administrative integration in looking at coming up with what that building should be. And now we have basically administration not really talking to any of the other stakeholders and making a decision. And this is not a building that sat there for 50 years. All of this has been within the last 5. And it just seems rather odd we're making this move so dramatically with something that's just been established. So there's been, again, a number of comments. I hope I captured them all effectively. And now to Don Collins.
Thank you, Andrew. It's Dan, but I get that all the time from your geosciences guys. God love you. I want to make one comment first. First off, Katrina Laporte needs to get out of my head, because everything she just said about the major building and the ILCB and the CTE, I was already geared up for. I am one that have taught in that 600. And if you try to do anything, students get motion sick when the trains go by. So that location for KMU is a god-awful idea. I think that was not used appropriately. And once again, it's an administration that comes through. Now, to the bigger bombshell in this, Dr. Sams, and I'm just going to throw it out there. I know for a fact that a potential schedule has been posted out to advisors through Joe Pettibon's office, in which the spring or the fall break for 23 is now possibly moved to a Friday, Monday. I understand that is in response to what just happened, but this was sent to many advisors, asked for their feedback. It has us starting even earlier, which I'm okay with, but now you're starting to mess with multiple academic weeks in which people have labs. So if you were to have lab on Wednesday, it doesn't affect you. But if you have lab on a Monday, or you have lab on a Friday, which I'm sorry, we have programs that have 8,000 students that go and have lab, and we can't just lose a day. So it's one of those things that when it talks about this sort of thing of all of the, oh, we're getting input, we're doing this, we're doing that, it's all secondarily, and it's getting real old real quick. And this was something I brought up to Joe back a month ago. So it's one of those things that as we're going along and we're talking about this fall break, I'm fine with saying it's not going anywhere. It was great. It came at the perfect time. We cannot get into November. But at the same point, we are a massive state school with 70,000 people, and we just cannot go and uproot stuff and move it around and expect programs like math, biology, a lot of our first year programs that can go and just move around pieces like this. And it's going to be an epic disaster, especially if we start limiting weeks in which we can do labs. Right now, when talking to our organic people, they have 9 usable weeks now. And that's just plain unacceptable.
Well, I understood that the new schedule, the new days had input from the Senate. Isn't there a committee that reviewed this or had input? I thought I talked to Joe about this last Monday or Tuesday. I thought he said he had worked with the Senate on, got input on it. No?
He got the, I'll jump in here, Provost Sams. Our Academic Affairs Committee worked on this last year and put together a pretty extensive report with recommendations. And after the last Senate meeting, Joe asked me if I could send him a copy of it, and I did. So he does have the material that our Academic Affairs Committee put together a year ago dealing with a fall break. But we have not seen a new schedule proposed for next year and provided any reaction to that as the Senate. It hasn't come to the EC or to any of the individual committees that I'm aware of.
Okay, that helps. That helps a lot. It is incredibly complicated to put something like this into a calendar. It may be helpful for him to explain all the considerations that go into this. Hear your feedback on that. I'll have to talk to Joe about that.
So I think Senator Cordy probably wants to weigh in on this issue.
I just didn't want there to be a false impression that everybody is opposed to this. A lot of people, I think, are delighted we have a fall break. And, you know, this is an enormous university that you can't possibly please and accommodate every need for every class. And I've always looked at it, you know, I designed the classes around whatever the calendar is, not the other way around. I mean, I also don't understand this issue with the labs. We have 14 Mondays, 14 Tuesdays, 14 Wednesdays, 14 Thursdays, and Fridays when you redefine them at the end of the day. So, you know, maybe there are other permutations of this that might improve on what we had this year, but I found, and I think the students I've talked to found, having a break here in the middle of October at the middle of the semester was really useful. It's something I have thought we've needed for the whole 15 years that I've been here. It's an extraordinarily long stretch from August to Thanksgiving. So I'm opposed to these other ideas of starting even earlier and going as a continuous 14-week block and ending at Thanksgiving. I think that's even worse. You know, these short little breaks in the middle help. And so anyway, I just wanted to give a counter opinion to some of the things that have been said on here.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the recognition. It's a complicated process to set that up. And I see some of the chats going through about the students have felt it quite valuable and helpful as well.
Senator Falvo is next, I believe.
Thank you so much, Senator Klein. So I just wanted to chime in here from the Galveston campus. And I don't pretend to speak for all faculty here, although I speak for as many as I and my caucus have spoken to. I have not heard a single positive response down here. And I know that there are a lot of conflicting opinions on the calendar. And I know that it is a complicated process, but I would just put in a plug here that this is precisely the reason for shared governance, that We generally try to give as much feedback as we can, and we generally try to survey as many people as we can. But I think the people that are going to know best what's working in the classroom in terms of the break are the people that are in the classroom. I know that we talk about this often being a really big problem for labs. I absolutely understand that that is a big problem for labs. I don't teach a lab and it's still a big problem for me. I teach a humanities course and I teach history, and what we do in history is we frame each week around certain ideas. And when we mess up that framing, we mess up the delivery and it just gets confusing. Can I work around it? Yes, but it is majorly disruptive to shift that calendar every year. If we could find a solution that is with the most input of the faculty, that is within consideration of what we all need. I also do agree that if we're going to talk about mental health, we have to talk about mental health of everybody on each side of the desk there. I just a plug that shared governance is the way to go here. And if academic affairs is recommending a calendar, I really think that that needs to be what the administration considers, because I can't think of people who will be more qualified to determine what will work best in an academic sense than the people that are doing the academics.
Well, I would agree that I need to verify the degree of consultation that's been done, but there's a lot of things that go into running a university in addition to what goes on in the classroom. And so Joe, I think, is considering a lot of aspects of that when that's being set. So but your statement about shared governance is very true and very needed. So I will continue to check into this more.
Senator Hill Price has her hand up next.
So I just want to let you know that that went out to the AOC deans and to the university advisors on October 13th for consideration. Apparently, it appears that it didn't make it to the faculty senate.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Vimalapalli, apologies for the name.
No worries.
Pronunciation.
So to kind of piggyback on what other people have said, like I like the fact that there's the break, but the other problem for planning purposes is that when this came down, and other senators can correct me if I get the date exactly wrong, but I believe for the this fall, we were told in maybe May that the calendar change was happening. And so for those of us who are supposed to have a month off, that are 11-month faculty, we were kind of scrambling because some of us teach or have responsibility, big responsibilities all year round. And so suddenly I'm taking what should be my month off and rescheduling because 2 Mondays are hit. And yes, the same amount of Mondays, but some things predicate off of others. And so to then try and change that in a very short time is difficult. And also for the professional schools, and I know we're not the majority of the campus, but everything is in lockstep with one another. And so if you change a day, it affects the entire DVM curriculum, and it could affect the entire dentistry, the entire med school, because suddenly we have days off that we didn't have. So, I mean, I like the break, and I think it's good for both faculty and the students. But as far as the mental health of the faculty, probably the big issue was having to change in such a short amount of time. School districts, at least for College Station, ask and put out their calendar 2 years in advance. I think we should have, if they can do it, shouldn't we be able to set up a calendar 2 years in advance and have plenty of time?
Senator Bapst.
On that note, with school districts, I greatly appreciate it when TAMU has its holidays overlapping with the holidays and breaks that are taken by the local school districts. And been really great the last few months, at least in terms of the overlap. There was a little bit of disagreement in terms of the fall break, but it was good to have more of the holidays to share with my family.
Thank you.
Just one comment that I was told I should mention here from Cutter, from Senator Bounds. In Cutter, we usually have a full week break in week 8 around October 10th to the 14th. It's crucial for both the students and faculty for both spring and fall breaks. So I thought I should include that as well. And at this point, I don't see any other hands up. And I think with regard, except for all the comments about the break, I think we've hit all the comments in the chat.
Okay, if there are no other issues, then Provost Sams, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Good to see you all.
Now we'll move on to the announcement section of our meeting, which will be devoted to issues you senators raised in our last meeting. Officials from Academic Innovation, Information Technology, and the Division of Research are present to answer questions you may have for them today or hear concerns you'd like to express. I'd like to attempt to tackle this in an orderly manner. So first we'll take general IT questions or comments. Canvas questions will be handled a bit later. Mitch Whitnaman, Assistant Vice President for IT Academic Operations, is with us today. Are there questions about or concerns that you would like to bring to the attention of IT?
Hi, I would. I'm Luz Herrera at the law school, and we've had really difficult time getting proper response times for changes or things that we've had to do here, and it's not our local IT team. So I have brought this up to a number of folks, and I'm not sure how to address the issue, but the fact that we're far away, it's a little bit out of sight, out of mind. So I just wanted to get a little bit of sense now that things are being centralized about how, how folks are dealing with these long delays in responsive. And it has to do everything from software that we're trying out to contracts that people have to sign off on for us to move forward with the vendor.
Thank you for your comment. The distance between the law school and central campus should not impact the service delivery to your areas. That's for certain. With the respect to the software installations, potential software issues, that's something that we would have to kind of look at on a one-on-one case basis. It may be due to licensing issues. But as far as that's concerned, I'd like to kind of get a little more information from you about what particular aspects that is causing or that you've encountered to address where these issues may be quickly resolved from. The contracts issue, that is something we'd have to get with the finance office for understanding of where any delays like that may be encountered from. But I'd be happy to get with you further about additional information to answer your concerns.
Thank you. I will follow up with you.
Senator Banerjee is next. Deb, are you there? Hope I did.
Hi, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I think there was a problem with the audio. So what I was saying was, our satellite campuses may have IT issues that probably are not being addressed properly. So for example, the Houston campus of engineering medicine has a few IT issues, but there seems to be no resolution for months on. And I was wondering, if you're aware of what's creating the bottleneck for addressing those issues in NMED.
Well, Senator Banerjee, I really appreciate your comments at the last Faculty Senate. We did reach out to the InMed Dean's office. We met with members of their leadership team. We were advised of the issues that they were experiencing, which stem around classroom experiences, dropped audio, collaboration back to the main College Station campus. We are formalizing a plan to resolve those issues now that the issue has been brought to our attention, and we certainly appreciate the information that led us out to do those areas. I think just as a whole, all of our teams are wanting to service the entire needs of the organization from the faculty, student, staff perspective. So when you hear of issues like that that occurred at InMed, if you could please let our teams know as quickly as possible by reaching out to any one of the people on the technology services team underneath Mr. Pearson's purview, we would be more than happy to address those issues for any member of this team and for the entire organization.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Senator Taylor.
Yes, thank you. I'm with the College of Agriculture, and admittedly, my question is very College of Agriculture targeted. Our college not too long ago integrated a new IT networking for all members of our college, as well as our research and extension agencies. And while they did not remove our ability as teaching faculty to utilize the university's Google-based platform or Google-supported platform, however I should be describing it, I was told that there was a potential loss of the amount of drive space, particularly in Google Drive, that might be experienced in the future with regards to my own documents, files, what have you, as a, shall we say, an inducement or an enticement to move my files over to my colleges and agencies, IT. Would you comment, or can you comment as to current planning, any planning whatsoever to change what has been, at least traditionally, an unlimited drive space in Google Drive for documents, files, storage, sharing with students, collaboration with students, for both for undergrad and or grad students, and myself as a teaching research faculty member? Again, my question is primarily targeted towards College of Ag faculty, based on our colleges and agencies not too long ago IT changes.
So I'll do my best, certainly, Senator Taylor, so I'll do my best to answer that question for you. I will start by getting back with the entire Senate, the documentation that we have with respect to changes, potential upcoming changes to Google services as provided to not just Texas A&M University, but all academic institutions. As you're aware that Google, Microsoft, and other vendors periodically change their level of service agreements to the organization. And so I'll certainly get that back to this, to Speaker Rice for distribution out to the senators. With respect to the College of Agriculture, our current team, as you're aware, does not service the College of Agriculture AgriLife. It is something that we are looking to make sure that there is feature parity between all services delivered between the College of Agriculture and also Texas A&M University holistically. So I can't speak to the specifics of what might have occurred in agriculture or what the messaging is currently in agriculture. I will speak with Mr. Alan Kirk and try to get more information and get back with you on that.
Senator Hammond had her hand up next.
Actually, this is directly related to the last question, which is in Google Drive, when a student shares something with you, when that student leaves, those documents get deleted. Now we get an email saying this person is about to leave and they've shared documents with you. Do you want to save them or something? But I think, and I have done that, but I often miss the 30-day warning or whatever. And I feel like it should automatically happen that if a student shares a document with you, that those documents should remain accessible to the faculty. And I know that you guys have the power to do that. So I think it would be really nice if that were an automatic process so that we're not like, especially because grad students will often, create some materials for you that are really necessary for the longevity of your lab, or even the classes that you teach, the TAs and things like that may have created them in their side. So I think having that be an automatic process would be very beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment and feedback, and that is definitely something we will look into doing.
Senator Laporte.
Hi, thanks for addressing us today. Is that me? No, it's Jane Rubin. Okay, all right. I was on working group 35, which is the IT consolidation, and I see a dire need for IT consolidation across campus, and I kind of agreed with the charge. Faculty are now expected to be IT experts and know who to contact, and like to us, it's all just wiggly bits behind a computer screen. And so we have to contact one person for one thing and one person for another thing, and then things change and so forth and so on. I'd like to know where we're at with the consolidation of maybe a centralized help desk. And I'd like to know where we're at with regards to faculty input into this decision making that affects us, like what goes into a classroom, how we can change our computers, what software we use, etc., etc. Is there a timeline for that coming down the pipeline?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, Senator Laporte. We are working for a unified ticketing system as part of the outcome of that working group. We are currently working through internal processes to the understanding of what needs and requirements have been given out by that working group and by others that have been surveyed on the faculty, staff, and student perspectives. Researchers as well, when I say faculty, both the academic and researcher hats. So the goal right now is that we will be looking through this process through the remainder of this year, with announcements coming out in the very first part of the spring, with the expected implementation by the latter part of the spring, early part of the summer for a revised ticketing system. We too agree that there are too many points of contact required, that there is too much knowledge to be understood about what's going on under the hood to who to contact versus just having a standard location to go for. What we are trying to do, though, is to make sure that the first point of contact that you have can also be the first point of resolution to any question that is asked. So from the student perspective, that's a completely different looking help desk system than it would be for faculty members wearing an academic hat versus a research hat. So we are very cognizant of that. There are working groups that are currently working on what the next images will look like, the gold images that are going to be deployed in the summer and fall. We have actually started working more with faculty members over the past couple of months, specifically with Senator Klein on some of the groups for the population of technology services for the positioning, to make sure that we are inclusive of the faculty members as well as students that we have not been as cognizant of it before, to make sure that we get the valid input for that in terms of classroom design, software, deployments, things of that nature. So we definitely appreciate the comments. It's something we're looking forward to continue to build up for the organization.
Thank you very much for the concise response. I appreciate it.
Senator McGill has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm another one of the ag people. I'm really concerned. Canvas was so limiting that Google Docs has been a godsend as far as how much can be stored. You want at least the PowerPoints and so forth for the test that you're going to give next to be available to the students. And the second thing is when we go to agnet.com, I have to use my A&M email to get in the classroom. But if I go to agnet.com at home, all I get is Word and whatever. I don't get the email at all. And I follow their instructions, and I'm at home right now and I could not get Agnet email because it's Microsoft Word run or something. I don't know. But it's been a problem for me.
Thank you for your comment, sir. It is something that we're going to have to address, as I said, with Mr. Alan Kirk. I'll have to get with him for more information about what Agnet has currently listed in their contract, as opposed to what we have for the Texas A&M Google contract, because those are separate contracts and implementation is handled a little bit differently.
Dr. Townsend has her hand up next.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Great. This is not actually a Canvas problem, but it was something that came up as we were trying to wrap up spring scheduling before deadline, using Howdy and Compass for historical data, trying to get those numbers right, et cetera, et cetera. I used it in the afternoon. I closed my computer. I went home that evening, reopened it 2 hours later, and the platform had completely changed. Everything about trying to find classes, filtering for previous years, filtering for enrollments, filtering for instructors had totally changed. And I don't understand how that could ever be a good idea on a Wednesday evening, like 2 days before spring schedules are supposed to be finalized. Where was the input in making that decision? Thank you.
Dr. Townsend, this is one of those issues that I'm going to have to get back with you on. I'm unaware that this occurred, but we will get back with the Faculty Senate and provide additional information for you.
Thank you very much. I did ask questions and nobody seemed to know how it came about.
So I think Grace said what a lot of us got caught with a little while ago. But at this point, I don't see any other questions in the chat or hands up.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll deal with Canvas. Jocelyn Widmer, the Assistant Provost for Academic Innovation, is here. Do any of you have questions or concerns about Canvas that you'd like to raise?
Senator Jemez has his hand raised.
Hi, Daniel Jimenez from Engineering. I have a couple of questions on behalf of one of the faculty here about Canvas. And so he asks, says, it would be nice to be able to add colleagues to our Canvas sites without the peculiar ORCA process. He asserts that Canvas supports this functionality. And he also says, the syllabus link is broken because we use a peculiar page as our syllabus. We could fix this with the external link tool, but the university won't let us add any plugins to Canvas. So if you have any response to that, or if you'd like to get in touch with me, appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks for your comments. Can you hear me okay? I'm having
Yes.
some, okay, perfect. Thank you. So first on on both of these topics, Canvas has the ability to be customized in quite a few ways. And so if you look at documentation from other institutions, often you're finding that a University of Texas or Penn State or whatever is doing something slightly different. So we've worked closely with Dr. Garza's team and also the Office of the Registrar through the implementation process to make sure we put Canvas in place in line with student rules, system policies, and requirements. So on the roles piece, that's one that I'll come back to you with a more specific answer. That's really under Dr. Garza's domain and the Office of the Registrar. As to the why on that one, I want to make sure that I'm using their words on that one. But we've worked to really streamline ORCA to ensure that that process is as straightforward as possible. The LMS Executive Committee also has consistently stood behind the training requirements, both information security awareness as well as FERPA training. So both of those are necessary for any of the course associate roles that an individual would be enrolled in a course with. And we also have Canvas set up with feeds from the student information system. So all of this is been carefully thought through and ensured that we're in line with, again, student rules and TAMU system regulations. So I'll come back to you and make sure that you have a good understanding of some of this that's seeped in those regulations from Dr. Garza's perspective. And then on the syllabus piece, I'll make sure we'll check on that link. I may reach out to you to make sure I fully understand where the issue is. I I could see it being two different things. So let me reach out to you to make sure I understand before I comment.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Senator Uchaz.
Hi, thank you very much. I am a professor in the School of Performance Visualization and Fine Arts, and I teach a 180 student core curriculum course. And I have a couple questions about integration between Canvas and Howdy. And this has come up because there are third-party tools that were not approved in time for when I was able to set up my Canvas shell, which means that we now have to bring over grades from those third-party tools into Canvas manually. So my little team of GATs is on the case, but there was a way to do that obviously manually, which introduced a great deal of human error. And then of course, there's the way to integrate, or rather push and pull CSV files between these two separate entities. One of the issues that we're running into then is as students Q drop from Howdy, they also then disappear from the gradebook in Canvas. And this leads to mismatch in the CSV files when we want to upload them. I had gotten in touch with AI earlier on in the semester to address several questions, and now we come to the web of difficulties. So first, I tried to call the help desk, which of course sent me to a centralized Canvas area where they couldn't actually deal with my specific question. So then I went to the office hours for the office or for Office of AI, and I was told that actually to answer the question about Howdy integration, that you were very helpfully offering to get in touch with the registrar's office to see if this could be worked out. And what I'm looking for really is the ability to be emailed when students Q drop the class or notified in some way, or to be able to actually have a list of roster of enrolled students on any particular day, that I should be able to actually access that and print that archivally. So I talked about this in office hours, and I was told the best course of action would be to email the centralized help desk with the opening line that this needed to be escalated by sending it right back to the offices of AI, which is what I did. And then the email was kind of promptly forgotten. And when I followed up a couple of weeks later, your office was super apologetic about trying to integrate that, but I'm now running into, if I can recap, 3 issues. So one is integration of registration services with Canvas to be able to deal with third-party tool integration when we have to deal with CSV files. One is the problem of the consolidation of the help process, that in order to actually get in touch with people on campus, I now need to reach out to a third party before it actually gets escalated to people at the Office of AI. And actually, I'll leave it there. I just kind of want to hear the rationale or what's happening, what can be done.
Sure. So on the issue or the questions about the roster, let me come back to you. Let me get in touch with the registrar's office. I'm not entirely sure at this moment which of 2 offices that is, and probably some combination of 2. So I'll myself or one of my staff will get back to you on that one. In terms of the help desk, and I'm guessing that I think I saw something pop up in the chat. So we put that, we linked with Canvas Tier 1 support in April. We started the planning process in March, and there were several factors that went into play at the time. I mean, really staffing issues, logistics with staffing, as well as trying to make sure that we were providing support to faculty and students beyond 8 to 5. We actually weren't offering support to students out of my unit consistently and in an advertised way until we put this in place. So what we're doing right now, I've been working with Ed Pearson as well as Dr. Johnson. We're spending the next week or 2 finalizing data to really understand what the patterns look like from April. We put this in place April 24th, 25th to today. So it ends up going to be about 6 months worth of data. We're seeing some positive trends with the data. There was in terms of how people want to be served
particularly faculty. We've seen some behavior changes, as Dr. Sams mentioned, but we're also trying to improve the workflow in sync with some of the pieces that Mitch just talked about with a centralized help desk. We're going to be in sync with that. We'll shift to the new ticketing system. I spoke with the CIO's chief of staff on that last week. So there's a whole lot in the works behind the scenes to study where some of the challenges are, to really understand. For instance, you submit a ticket to Canvas Tier 1 support. By the time it gets to us, potentially it's between 3 and 8 emails that come to you. I recognize that that's a lot of email communication, and as you're trying to dig back and figure out, did we mess up? Did Canvas mess up? Did you delete the email on accident? You know, it's hard to track 8 emails that are just notifications. So we're trying to see if we can streamline that. We have reached out to the vendor to ask them to really be a partner with us on where, you know, some of this, when we set up Tier 1 support in March, there were some hard no's from the vendor. Now coming back with some of your feedback, particularly from this meeting and last, with our data, I think we're going to be in a better place to have some conversations, and they seem very willing to have some of those conversations. And then also working with peer institutions. We spent a lot of time talking with Georgia Tech when we were implementing Canvas Tier 1. We were on a tight timeline to get it in place ahead of the end of the spring semester. So I think we're going to be able to be more thoughtful with some of the pieces that they have in place, some of the workflows. So all of this is very much under discussion with an improved future state, I think, is everybody's goal. And I had a really good conversation with Ed Pearson 2 weeks ago, and he intimately understands Canvas Tier 1 support and your feedback. And I mean, it was a great conversation because it was talking with somebody who really understands where is the rub, where can his team support, where can we ultimately get to a better state, and you know, leveraging the fact that we are seeing some behavior change. For instance, there's a moment in time in July where chat just took off in terms of the preferred support channel, and that's something that my unit didn't offer until we shifted to this. So there are some, you know, great things that we can highlight and showcase in terms of the data. And I've been thinking through, Speaker Rice, how to get you some of that when the time comes to share these data. I'll be in touch with you on how best to communicate them to the executive committee or the Senate at large. So I'll come back to you on the very specific technical question you had, because I think that's going to need to involve a couple of different units.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I think I saw one other question to the effect of the help desk in the chat, not monitoring the chat as well as I probably should.
Not sure I saw one about the help desk.
Okay.
But unless it just went to you.
I don't think so.
Well, while I have it up, there is a question. There's a new feature named filter IP addresses in Canvas. Why does this not work in our version of Canvas? It'd be a good tool for fighting cheating, etc.
Yeah, I'll have to come back to you on that one. That one I'm not specifically familiar with, and we had our call with the vendor today and it wasn't brought up. So let me come back to you on that one after I do a little more research.
So I think Senator Venomopoli is next.
So, so thank you for coming and talking with us, Dr. Widmer. My question is on Canvas integration with, I see on the third-party sites that OneDrive is still in review. And given that a lot of us on campus are being asked to go to OneDrive, and with people, particularly with big file sizes, we either need a Google Drive integration or we need a OneDrive integration. And so my question is, when do you think the OneDrive, is there a timeline for possible approval of that OneDrive integration? Thank you.
Sorry, issues of mute. So Office 365 is there. The vendor, the two vendors, Canvas and Microsoft, have had some issues So let me check back. That was something we were getting an update on pretty regularly, but I think it's fallen off our agenda. So let me come back to you on that one.
So speaking of the vendor, there's a question in the chat from Dr. Alvarado. Will the vendor have a question and answer session with faculty?
Hold on, I'm not getting my notes fast enough. I can certainly ask. I think they value the opportunity to engage, and so I think I will make the ask and see what they come back with. But I think there's some great feedback coming, particularly with the Canvas Tier 1 sport. They know we're evaluating it, so let me make the ask and come back to you, Speaker Rice.
So the first of the two biology colleagues, Dr. Rao, has her hand up next. You're muted.
Sorry. Thank you. This has been an ongoing issue, and I don't know what has been done about this, but we do have a way to moderate the quizzes on Canvas, but we cannot moderate the assignments. What I mean in that is we can actually go into an individual student and give them an extra attempt or change the time or do any of those things, but we cannot do anything with Canvas and assignments. So if you have an online course like mine, where we have a lot of Turnitin and assignments and they're all free response kinds of questions, they have to always submit these. And whenever they do submit these, and if they make a mistake, especially in a Turnitin, and if they contact me before the deadline, if it was on eCampus before, I would just go and delete their assignment and say, go ahead and upload it, the new document, whatever that is. But right now, I cannot delete any of their assignments. Once they submit it, and if they have used up their 2 attempts that I have given them, unless I go and increase an attempt for the entire class, I cannot individually go and do anything on that student record. Just today, I had to contact the help chat with the Canvas, and they basically said, oh, I'm so sorry, we cannot help you with that. You have to contact the Canvas admin, and they are the only ones who can delete an assignment. And we have submitted tickets. I have like 3 emails from them saying it has been submitted, and I haven't gotten a response yet. So my question is, why is it so hard not to be able to moderate assignments in Canvas when we can do the same thing with quizzes? Why can't I just go and delete the assignment if I have to for an individual student without worrying about changing it for like 400 students that I teach?
Yes, I understand that issue intimately. I've had the same issue when I was teaching. Let me take that one back to the vendor. I can't speak specifically because I know that the behavior of an assessment or a quiz, new quizzes versus an assignment in Canvas have a lot of similarities, but they also certainly differ quite a bit in terms of the behavior and the logic that you're able to apply. So let me bring that one back to the vendor. I'll check on the ticket, where exactly your ticket is, if it's with us or with them, and see if I can get you a better response than what I'm able to provide.
Thank you.
My computer's having a bit of problems, but Dr. Tag is next.
Thank you, Dr. Widmer. My question is related to Duo, and we have that new version of Duo that popped up a few weeks ago. And it appears that it is not compatible with Respondus if students use their fingerprint as their authentication, which many of them are doing now. And so there is a workaround. I understand they have to wait until it times out as they're trying to get into their online assessment. And then it'll pop up a little other options button. Is there a plan to make that so that's not a thing? A workaround from Respondus or RIT or something?
Sure. Let me, I've got one of my staff will put a link in the chat. So in a chat to me. So let me send that to you shortly. So I just heard of this in a Hullabaloo class late last week, and one of my staff actually gave the workaround. So that was the first time I was really hearing about it. So let me see what we can do on our end. And in the meantime, I'll get you this link that we've posted.
Thank you.
Senator Haney has his hand up next. Adam, your mic isn't working correctly. You sound like Alvin the Chipmunk.
Does this work?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Computer resets. It has a mind of its own. I apologize if you've already answered this question. I had to step away to a departmental meeting for 20 minutes or so, but one of the issues in Canvas is the ability to take the preset templates out and that information out. At one point we had the ability, and I understand why they're in there for ADA compliance and ease of what, you know, kind of user friendly if you wanted to build from scratch or manipulate. But for those of us who are pretty skilled users with Canvas, if we had the ability just to take that out or turn that off, because when I import a course on top of that content, it just confuses it and adds a lot of clutter. So if we could take that out, that would be a great help to a lot of us. Because as soon as you change a template, it's no longer ADA compliant. And so when I've asked and that argument has come up, that just doesn't make sense to me. So could we get that function back just to delete that content if we so chose? Thanks.
Thank you for that comment. That is, we continue to look at the template and processes and workflows behind the scenes, as well as for faculty with the template. So that's certainly on our radar. So I appreciate you providing extra detail.
So I believe that is all the hands that are raised, and I don't see any more questions in the chat.
Okay, I would like to thank both of you for coming and spending time with us today. We were also going to pose questions for the Division of Research, but I'm going to move that in the interest of time to next month. Moving on to speaker comments, and I will keep them brief. Colleagues, we've hit the midway point in the semester, although we continue to deal with all the changes brought about by the reorganization of the university. I hope that at least in your classrooms, things are going well. Last month, several of you requested that the Senate have the opportunity to reaffirm its commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Executive Committee unanimously endorsed a resolution doing that and is putting it before you later in today's meeting for your consideration. We had the first of the Senate coffee hours last month, and from my perspective, it was a success. Senators had the opportunity to raise issues of concern as well as share successes from their individual schools and colleges. Our next coffee will be this Friday in the Great Hall at the YMCA from 8 to 9:30. I welcome you to come for as little as a few minutes or for the whole time if you can. In addition to the monthly coffees, we proposed holding 2 in-person receptions this year to provide another opportunity for networking and collegiality. The fall reception honoring our new senators will be at 5 p.m. next Monday at the Hotel and Conference Center on campus. Please respond to the invitation from the Senate office to allow us to plan for adequate food and beverages. I hope to see many of you there next week. Finally, I want to thank all of you for serving in the Senate, and I especially want to express my gratitude to those of you who have taken on the added responsibility of chairing one of our committees. Shared governance works best when we have dedicated faculty like you who are willing to participate in the process. Thank you for all that you do. Moving on to approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the September 12th meeting minutes found in attachment B? Hearing none, then I declare the minutes approved as distributed. Are there any questions or concerns on the October 17th consent agenda items? Hearing no questions or concerns, I declare the October consent agenda approved as presented. Are there any questions or concerns for the Core Curriculum Council report found in attachment C? Hearing no questions or concerns, I declare the report approved as submitted. Our first item of new business is proposed changes of Student Rule 54 found in attachment D1. Secretary Epstein, please move the attachment.
I move approval of attachment D1.
Is there any discussion? Then, Senator Klein, could you please launch the poll?
Okay, it looks like it has stable ups. Give it a few more seconds. There's a few more people coming in here. Okay, I think it's stabilized. I'm going to share it and I'm going to read the numbers to you. So there's 67 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, given those results, the changes are approved. The next item under new business is the proposed resolution on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Secretary Epstein, please read and move the resolution.
Whereas Texas A&M University this year became a Hispanic serving institution, and whereas the university's efforts to enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion were a critical component of reaching that milestone, and whereas the university still has significant work ahead to help other underrepresented groups make progress to more adequately reflect Texas of the 21st century, and whereas the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, as part of, quote, building a talent strong Texas, close quote, has noted that, quote, in raw numbers, Texas grew more than any other state over the past decade and is one of the youngest and most diverse states in the nation. More than 95% of our growth over the past decade was in communities of color. Emphasis: if we're not advancing our goals equitably, we cannot meet these goals, end quote. The bold emphasis is that of our coordinating board. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Executive Committee of the Faculty Senate of Texas A&M University reconfirms its commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, and be it further resolved that the Executive Committee supports the goals of programs such as ACES and ACES Plus that aim to diversify the ranks of faculty to better represent our state and our student body. I move approval of this resolution attachment D2.
Is there discussion?
Senator McGill has his hand up first.
Yeah, I was just wondering why it says the executive committee and not the whole Senate in the resolution.
Senator McGill, I think that would be an appropriate amendment for you to make. We wrote it initially for the executive committee and then brought it forth to the full Senate, deciding that that was the more appropriate way. So if you wanted to move that we amend it to simply remove executive committee and replace it with faculty senate, that would be an appropriate thing to do now.
Okay, then I would like to move that we remove executive committee and replace it with the Senate.
I second.
Okay, is there any further discussion on that proposed amendment? Then Senator Klein, would you launch the poll?
Just a second. I figure out how to relaunch it again.
It's just a point of clarification. Just a point of clarification here. Are we voting on the friendly amendment that Senator McGill put forth?
Yes.
Yes.
Just on the amendment, this is not approving the resolution yet.
This is simply voting on the proposed amendment that would change the language and say that this is the full Senate.
I'll give it a couple more seconds. There are people still adding their votes to it. Okay, I believe we're stabilized, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Can you see that, Dr. Rice?
Yes, I see the percentages.
So it's 74 for, 1 against.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to discussion on the full resolution.
Senator Kolozinski has his hand up.
Oh, yes, thank you, Dr. Klein. I believe that voting on or even debating this resolution is extremely unwise because one of the programs it endorses is subject to litigation. Someone has sued the university alleging that the ACES Plus program violates the Civil Rights Act of 1965. Weighing in on a program that is subject to litigation whose outcome is highly uncertain is an extremely bad idea, as we are not court and we are not lawyers. Some of you may not want to hear this, but quite a few legal experts think the case against the university has a reasonable chance of succeeding. The plaintiff's attorneys are not some fly-by-night hacks. One of the lead attorneys, Jonathan Mitchell, served as the Solicitor General of the state of Texas for 5 years and has argued 5 cases before the Supreme Court. He's also been on the law school faculty at Stanford and the University of Chicago. Many of you, I am sure, are diametrically opposed to his politics, but it would be very foolish for you not to acknowledge that he is a highly knowledgeable, experienced, and successful litigator. Someone of his caliber does not take a case like this unless it has a reasonable chance of success. A professor at UC Berkeley Law School, John Yoo, as well as a sitting federal civil rights commissioner and professor of law at San Diego State, Gail Herriot, have both publicly opined that the plaintiff has a strong case. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and neither are most of you, but I think you need to take seriously that several formidable legal minds think the plaintiff's case is strong. I realize that other lawyers have been quoted saying otherwise, so it's no slam dunk. Nevertheless, if you are honest with yourself, I think you cannot help but conclude that there is some significant probability a court will rule the ACES Plus program is illegal. I don't know exactly what that probability is, but it certainly is well above 0. Now ask yourself,
how would it make this body look if we ended up endorsing a program that turned out to violate federal civil rights law? Do I need to remind you all that higher education features prominently on the agenda of the upcoming legislative session, and that we are going to be receiving an unusually high degree of scrutiny this time around? I'm sorry, but in this environment, it's just not prudent for us to be endorsing a program for which there is a risk it will be ruled illegal, especially when a majority of state legislatures would probably disagree with the program, even if it were legal. What's the upside of passing this resolution? This case is going to be decided on the legal merits. Our opinion is irrelevant to the court. So if you support the ACES Plus program, what good could this resolution possibly do for you? As a financial economist, I see all risk and no reward. Now, some people might answer me by saying the resolution doesn't endorse the possibly illegal ACES Plus program itself, but only its goals. Well, I hate to break it to you, but the lawsuit alleges that one of the goals of the program is one of the things that makes it illegal. I'm talking about the goal to, quote, move the structural composition of our faculty toward parity with that of the state of Texas. I took that verbatim from the ACES Plus memo NK sent out to the deans back in July. That means the resolution as written is explicitly taking a position on the merits of the lawsuit. I submit to you that we are not a court. We are not a jury. Very few of us are lawyers. We therefore have no business inserting ourselves into such litigation. But I'll go a step even further. Even if this ACES Plus goal is legal, and several independent legal experts I've spoken with personally think it most likely isn't, it's immoral in my view. According to the Diversity Office, 15% of our faculty are Asian. But that only counts Asians who are US citizens. If we were also to include the international Asian faculty, by my very rough estimate, Asians are around 20% of our faculty. Now, do any of you all know what the Texas population of Asians is? Yeah, it's about 5%. So Asians are overrepresented among our faculty relative to Texas by a factor of about 3 or 4, depending on if you use the 15% or 20% estimate. If you are serious about supporting the ACES Plus program goal of moving the structural composition of our faculty to parity with the state of Texas, then we are effectively supporting the replacement of 2/3 to 3/4 of our Asian faculty solely because of their race. If you support this resolution, I ask you, which 3/4 of your Asian colleagues do you want to get rid of? Or do you instead support making most new faculty positions one to which Asians need not apply for like the next decade? By the way, that's what the ACES Plus program does. It creates new faculty positions to which no Asians need apply, and also Irish. It's kind of funny. We're back to the point in our country's history where Irish need not apply either, it looks like. But that is what the goal of the ACES program, the ACES Plus program of structural parity is going to require. Is NK Anand, one of the architects of the ACES Plus program and an Asian, willing to resign his position to bring about structural parity with the state population? And this is, of course, nothing to say to all the white senators who support this program. Whites aren't overrepresented on our faculty to nearly the degree Asians are, but they're overrepresented nonetheless. Are all you white supporters of the ACES Plus program willing to step down so that we can move toward structural parity with the state of Texas? Somehow I doubt it. Before you vote, please reflect on how this resolution will support the immoral goals of the ACES Plus program will make our Asian colleagues feel. Will it make them feel welcome? You know, would it make you feel welcome if you know that your group is overrepresented by a factor of 3 or 4, and the university has the goal of bringing the university to structural parity with Texas? I doubt it. I can in fact tell you that many of my Asian constituents are pretty damn angry about it. In fact, a lot of my constituents of all ethnicities are pretty angry because many of us agree with the 70% of the American people, and probably a higher percentage of the Texas populace, that it is grossly immoral to make hiring decisions on the basis of race, no matter what your lofty goals to rationalize it may be. Perhaps some of you support this resolution for the purposes of virtue signaling, knowing well that it's not going to impact the outcome of the case. Well, the polling data suggests most Texans, the people we serve, will think you're vice signaling. Please think about that and its political ramifications in the next legislative session before you vote. Thank you.
Senator Hill Price has her hand raised.
I am almost speechless. I think that that was extraordinarily offensive, and but you're entitled to your opinion and to your freedom of speech, and I appreciate the fact that you have that. I absolutely disagree with the things that you said. I support this resolution, and so I'd like to talk about that again, pointing out that it doesn't say that we are specifically supporting those programs, but programs that are things such as that, those examples. I hope that we can help support our DEI initiatives and intent from our university and support the coordinating board initiatives to be able to better represent the people of the state of Texas who are paying for our services and paying taxes to support us. And so I would encourage you to support this resolution. Thank you.
I move to vote. Does anyone have a second?
Why don't you just hold off a moment, Tracy?
Okay.
There are no other, no one has their hand up. So I think that at this point we can move forward, and Senator Klein, would you launch a poll?
Oops, sorry about that. Wrong button.
Are we voting for the resolution, or what are we voting for?
Now it's a vote on the full resolution as amended to reflect that this is the position of the Faculty Senate, not just the Senate Executive Committee.
I'm sorry, Dale. So you're saying we're voting, if we vote yes, we're in agreement of supporting the resolution as a faculty?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
There are still a couple votes coming in, so we'll give it a couple more, a little while longer. Okay, does anybody else wish to cast their votes? It's being pretty stable here. Okay, we just had another vote be added. Okay, it hasn't changed, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So it's 54 yeses, 12 noes.
Given those results, the resolution is adopted. Thank you. With no other new business on the agenda, I now invite Speaker-elect Hammond to take us into the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Dale. One second. Thank you, Speaker Rice. I want to begin by asking if there are any positive actions or items of concern that are occurring on campus related to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So Senator Hammond has her hand raised.
I just wanted to remind people that November 4th is Texas Land Grants Day. Put the link in the chat. It's where researchers and faculty from Prairie View will come and visit us, and so we can make some interactions with Prairie View. Prairie View was created at the same time as Texas A&M in a separate but equal state, with the state promising the same resources and the same outcomes between the two universities. I hope you join us. I'll put the link in the chat.
Senator Vanuma Pali has raised her hands.
I promise this will be the last time I make you say that this session. So it's Bemala Pali, but it don't make it easy. Sorry. I just want to report from veterinary medicine that we have received. We had our first inaugural Future Aggies Veterinary Experience, FAVE. This summer, we have been looking at the data, and it was overwhelmingly positive. We hosted 9 students, undergraduate students from underrepresented and minority, let me back up, the historically Black colleges and universities of Texas. It was overwhelmingly positive with the students, and so we have just now gone forward. We will be continuing the FAVE camp for next summer, and we may actually be adding an additional week. So I just wanted to bring that forward.
Senator Epstein has raised her hand.
So I'm teaching engineering calculus, Math 151, for the first time in 10 years. And it's been extraordinary, the number of students I have that already have advanced placement credit for this. And so this first exam, I have a pool of students who have taken calculus that just aced the exam, but I have a pool of students that, for whatever reason, were unable to complete calculus in high school. And so I have this population in my 151 class that this test was much too difficult for them if they hadn't seen it before. So I don't know if the College of Engineering is considering that aspect of having the students not use their AP credits, that my students that are maybe coming in needing a little less competitive of an environment, because I can't undo the fact that some of these kids have calculus BC credit and are, doing limit laws. They don't even have to stretch to do this. So I just feel like this is an instance where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. So I just thought I'd put it out there because it was not like this 10 years ago.
I'd like to recognize Dr. McGowan, who has her hand raised.
I, with Texas A&M recently been designated as a Hispanic serving institution, I wanted to remind the faculty senate that Dr. Gina Garcia, who wrote the book on becoming an HSI, will be on campus this week. She will be delivering a keynote address on Wednesday in our campus, and also meeting with the members of the HSI Guiding Committee to talk about what it means to be a Hispanic serving institution. Even though we've moved on, I will also point out that the composition of the ACES Fellows program is 20% Asian, and that the group of ACES Fellows that we bring to campus are diverse and include a number of high achieving scholars, including this year, the winner of the prestigious Hubble Fellowship. Thank you.
Senator Hammond has her hand raised.
Yeah, there's also some great things that Julie Harlan in her office has been doing. They've created a Gaines Graduate Scholars Teaching Exchange program where graduate students can, from Prairie View, can come here for a semester, and likewise, students from here can go there for a semester. And there is also some encouragement for also some of the faculty to do that as well, I believe. And also there's been a new I think, I don't know if it's new, but there's like a new mentoring award that's really encouraging mentoring, which I think is a hugely important part for supporting our students in their DEI initiatives.
Senator Rao has her hand raised.
Oh, I just wanted to remind everybody that November 8th is designated as the National First Generation College Student Day. So it's a celebration time. And I think our university is participating and they're having some programs at the First Generation Center and also at the college level and the department levels. So this is the time to celebrate all the success of all of our first generation college students, faculty and staff. And it's on November 8th.
Dr. Hill Price.
I have something to bring up, but it's not related to the DEI, so I'll defer to Senator Haney.
Go ahead.
Oh, I would just like to throw in, and just as a reminder to everyone, that November 8th is the midterm elections. So even though the time to register to vote in Texas has passed, if you are already registered, then please make sure and avail yourself of early voting and midterms, because that does have an effect on DEI as well. So I'll shoehorn that in. Thank you, Senator Price.
Back to you, Senator Price.
Okay, so
are we moving on to the business of the whole? Should I mention
that was part of committee of the whole, right? The DEI was part of.
Yeah, so moving on to general business items, is there any business for the committee of the whole? Sorry, just trying to be formal.
The things I was talking about, so another issue that came up was that the department heads the president spoke to the department heads last week, I believe, and told them that the transfer process needs to be updated, that we are apparently leaving a lot of good students on the table. I don't know if any of you are aware, but faculty make the decision on, the departments make the decisions directly on which students to accept as transfer students, because the variability and the education that they get across the state. Typically it's a holistic review, but that's done by the faculty in the department. Admissions is now no longer under the provost. It's not in an academic chain. It's not in anything that we have any input into who goes in that area. And I'm extremely concerned that people who don't understand our curriculum and understand our degrees and understand the courses will be making decisions on those students who are coming in and taking it out of the hands of faculty. This goes along with the other part, the reduction of faculty and removing them from the advising role. We are the advisors. We have delegated those responsibilities to staff members to help us, but none of that can happen without faculty. And so the idea that we're now minimizing, again, the faculty role to just say, go in the corner and teach your classes, and that's all you get to do, I'm finding very concerning. So I'm extremely concerned about the faculty role in advising, and that some departments or colleges have already made moves to remove faculty from advising positions. So we've taken away a service opportunity and some of those summer engagement or employment opportunities for faculty. So I hope that you would please talk to faculty in your college who have been previously engaged in advising and see what their responses are to that. Thank you.
Speaker-elect Hammond has her hand raised next.
Thank you, Angie, for that great point. I'm going to repeat a point that was brought up last month because I found more information, which is about the raises that we got. So, Texas A&M College Station got 2%, Galveston got 0% with only one-time merit raises. But I have found out since then that our SEC other members got somewhere between 4 and 9%, with the average being around 8.5%. And so I just wanted to bring that up because I don't feel that I'm still satisfied with the explanation for why the raises have been so low here, considering inflation and considering the lots of other money that has been being devoted to creating lots of new initiatives around here. We want to be important. It's very important for us to retain our faculty, to show them our respect, and to pay them equitably compared to other people in similar situations. That's it.
Makes us feel a lot better, Tracy. Thanks, at Galveston.
Yeah, yeah.
So at this point, I do not see any additional hands raised and there's nothing in the chat.
I will now return the meeting to Speaker Rice.
Thank you, Speaker-elect Hammond, and thank you to all of you in the Senate for your time and participation today. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
And all in favor, say aye.
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 I think it's pretty clear that we're ready to adjourn. Again, one last reminder, coffee on Friday, Great Hall of the YMCA, reception next week. Take care, everyone. Have a good rest of the
And
week.
next Friday or next Monday at 5 to 7, right, is our social?
Yes.